Hello, this is Editing Alex. The video that you are about to see was filmed about 2 weeks ago, and I simply did not edit it and post it on time. That said, I think I had some very good things to say, so I'm gonna edit it anyway and post it for you 2 weeks late. I hope you enjoy it. On to the video. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Ink and Fig. My name is Alex, and today is another episode of Coffee Date with Alex. So I hope you have your drink ready and maybe some snacks if you feel like it. And let's talk about what we're reading, what we're doing with our lives. Because do any of us really know? I don't. Anyway, I am in a different place, as you might be able to tell. It was my 30th birthday yesterday on April 14th, and it was a wonderful day. My husband and I have run away to the mountains for the weekend, so that is where we currently are at. I'll show you a little bit of our view here, just so you can see the gorgeous nature that we've been able to wake up to every morning, and it's just been a really nice experience. We had massages yesterday, and I just had a facial earlier this morning, so my skin is feeling a lot better than it usually does, which is really nice. And I've been doing so much reading, and frankly, so is he. He brought a couple of books along with him also, but we all want to know, or I presume we all want to know, where I'm at with the readathon. So we're halfway through the month, and much to my surprise, I'm actually halfway through my reading list also. So the first book I finished was Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, which I thought was a really interesting book. It kind of took me back to my time in my English degree and doing IB English in high school and just looking at those sort of higher concept books and taking apart sort of the fabric of what we understand to be reality and the way that things work. It was a really interesting book, very short. I read it on Libby. I borrowed it from my local library, and it was only 222 digital pages, so it took less than a day to read overall. So that was the first one that I finished. I had a really slow start to the month, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think I was going to be as far along as I am now, and I'm really glad that I've actually made it this far. So the second book that I finished was Ace of Spades, which I'm not sure what I heard about that book because I was hearing not great things about it. And then I looked on Storygraph, and it turns out that it was 4.43 stars on Storygraph or something, and I'm like, that was really good, honestly. So I'm not sure what exactly it was that I was hearing, but clearly my sources are not reliable is what I'm getting out of this. I really actually enjoyed that book. I thought that it ramped up really well around the middle, which is kind of what I was banking on. Because I think my biggest critique of that book is that the first half really dragged. It sort of just felt like we were noodling around basically for the impact of trying to set the scene and trying to establish the story and the stakes and all of this, but I found it really draggy and not terribly interesting. And then we got to about the halfway point, which is when the characters finally decided to start doing things about the bullying that was happening to them, and that's where I thought that it finally ended up being interesting once, the main characters sort of activated their agency, because it really felt like they were just kind of, as high as the stakes were, it felt like at the beginning they were really just letting this happen, and just kind of hoping that hope would make it stop rather than actually doing anything. So that was kind of frustrating, but as soon as they figured themselves out and decided what they were going to do about everything, it actually got quite good. The ending was really solid. It reminded me a lot, and I've heard this in other reviews that I've seen, but it reminded me a lot of Get Out, which I still think is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Smashing work. So Ace of Spades, really good. Haven't decided what I'm rating it yet. It's going to be somewhere around a 4 or 4.5, because the front half of the book I think definitely acted as a detractor for me because, again, the characters just really didn't seem to have much agency, and they were just making some choices that I didn't necessarily agree with given the circumstances that they were in. So I'm gonna figure that out. If you hear some strange like plonking sounds in the back, there's like some snow melting off of the roof of the hotel, and it's like because of aerodynamics and stuff, it's like hitting our window. So if that's what you're hearing, that's that. Or it's my husband clicking on his computer because he's playing Minecraft. This is our first time being back in like a one room space in a while since we moved into our house that has so many rooms. It's kind of nice to be in the same room with each other for so long. So anyway, the third book that I finished was Raybearer. And I'm really glad that I finally got that one started. And I'm looking forward to reading Redemptor because, frankly, it was a great book. The atmosphere in that book really came out, and it was very colorful, very evocative of the kind of world that we were supposed to be in. And like Tarisai was an incredible character. All of the side characters were really well developed. And I listened to the audiobook because I borrowed it from the library, and I thought that the reading was really good. The only criticism that I have of the audiobook was I thought that her renditions of all of the songs that were in this book were could be kind of annoying. But aside from that, it was a really good reading, and her accents were really good. Loved that. So that one was really good. Hoping to get my hands on Redemptor at some point. I think I'd like to listen to it in audiobook again, and if the audiobook hasn't yet been released, my library at least doesn't have it yet, so like I'm gonna wait until that's back on audiobook and then I'll carry on from there. Because it was good, and I'd like to keep going with that universe. I think it was really interesting. Again, just sort of like a fresh take on fantasy, and like a fresh take on how the world can operate. Because I was going through it and thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be the plot twist, this is going to be the plot twist, this is going to be the next plot twist, going on, and it was very expectations of like darkness and betrayal that I was expecting, and that's really not what we got. It was just a lot more of a hopeful outlook on this kind of fantasy, like this sort of hero's journey kind of fantasy that we're looking at. Not to say that it follows exactly the hero's journey, because there's like a couple of elements of that are missing from this book, but like we still have like the chosen one trope and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just, yeah, it was just a fresh take on it, and it was a very hopeful take on it. I'm excited to see where this is going, because I feel like there's gonna be a happy ending at the end of all of this. Just made me feel good. The next book that I read was The Gilded Wolves. I've been meaning to get to this and sort of avoiding it at the same time, because it keeps getting, and the reason that I read it for the readathon is because it keeps getting compared to Six of Crows, and like we all know, because I can't shut up about Six of Crows, that Six of Crows is like my favorite book of all time. So I was worried that The Gilded Wolves wasn't gonna live up to it, and like frankly, I don't think it did. If we're going by straight comparison, The Gilded Wolves, honestly, I don't think could hold a candle to Six of Crows. In part because I really couldn't care about the characters in the same way that I care about the characters from Six of Crows. Like, in Six of Crows, all of the characters kind of clawed their way up tooth and nail to get where they are, and where they are is nowhere flashy or exciting. And in The Gilded Wolves, they're, like, every character had their struggles, and they had, you know, well-developed, very realistic backstories that I actually really enjoyed. Particularly Zophia's, I think, was really well developed, but like all of them had a really good backstory, and I loved that. But I just couldn't care about their stakes in the same way that I could for Six of Crows. So I think looking at it from that comparative standpoint isn't going to work for me to properly analyze how good this book was, because frankly, I thought The Gilded Wolves was actually really good. It sort of had a vibe of like The Mummy, or like there was a there was a series of video games back when I was like a kid, and it was like all of these like absolutely outlandish adventures to like get you to, do math and memory puzzles and all of that kind of thing. I think it was called like Pathfinders or something. I don't remember. I'll throw a picture up here so that you can like see the series that I'm talking about. But it kind of felt like that. Like we had a lot of Egyptology stuff coming into this one. Like I think we were looking for the Horus Eye, and there was all of this stuff about like, again, Egyptology and like various other world mythologies, because this whole secret society situation, they're all very much into sort of the mysticism behind the marvels of the world, basically. It was really interesting and quite a unique look at I guess what you would call historical fiction, because this was set, I believe, in the 1880s. So it was like before a lot of things, but we also had like some elements of technology, in terms of this in terms of the idea of like forging, which was a big theme in this book. And it's sort of a it's a branch of magic, basically, is what I understand. It's sort of like halfway between magic and actual engineering, is this idea of forging. And like I just thought it was a really interestingly laid out book, and what really got me was the tone. It was very funny. Like it definitely almost crossed that line into comedy for me, so like an action comedy kind of situation. There were a lot of places that you can definitely cross over comparisons into Six of Crows, like Layla and Inej, and Severin and Kaz. Although, like, I wouldn't necessarily match Severin and Kaz against each other from like any other perspective other than that they're the main character, like the lead guy, and they're like supposed to be all in control or whatever, and they're kind of not. But yeah, interesting book. Glad I read it. And I actually think that I'm going to continue on and read the other two. The next book that I read was for the Alchemy side quest, which very bold of me to throw in another book when I'm already like kind of behind. But I read the audiobook for Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. That book was wild. It was only 3 hours long, so it was like a novella if you were to read it hard copy. And like, wow. It dealt with paranoia, with mental illness, with thought processes that I think can only really come up when you're a teenager. It was scary from the point of view of how realistic it was. And like it involved mannequins, but it also didn't. Like it was a really well done piece of horror, and I'm very excited to read more of his works. I have another one of his books at home that I would really like to read. So, going to be continuing with his work for sure, because that horror was incredible. What I am reading right now, I have with me What Lies in the Woods. I am 50 odd pages into this. So far, so good. We're also in the realm. The radiator has just started, so if there's like a whistling sound in the back, that's what that is. This book is also in the realm of horror. I sort of thought that it was going to be a Killing Mr. Griffin situation, and then I'm not entirely certain that I'm wrong about that yet, but like, there's a dead body in the woods. We don't really know what's going on with that, and we don't really know what's going on with the serial killer either, who has since died in prison. Our main characters are kind of messed up, as they would be after being involved with a serial killer at the age of 11. And just the vibes in this are immaculate. It's set in what I believe to be the Pacific Northwest, in Washington. It's got a very deep, dark atmosphere to it, which definitely matches the tone and the subject matter. So I'm excited to get further into this and see, what else this storyline has to offer. Because basically in the first 50 pages, we've just kind of been like, again, setting the scene and sort of figuring out who the characters are, what their stakes are, what their aftermath looks like from this event when they were kids. Aside from this, I actually brought my entire TBR with me because I was under this delusion that maybe I would read more than, one hard copy book. I've actually finished I finished the Gilded Wolves and Night of the Mannequins here already on vacation, so like, I have been actually like finishing things, but like, I'm never gonna read that much hard copy. But like, I drove here, so I didn't have to worry about like baggage weight or any of that, so I mean, like, why not just bring the whole thing? Might as well. Underneath my phone here, what you are currently propped on, I have These Violent Delights, The Bullet That Missed, and Born a Crime. I would have loved to start another one while I'm here, but considering the fact that I'm only a sixth of the way through this one, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, next weekend, I'm actually running off to Montreal for 3 days because we found a really good flight price and we thought it would be fun to go visit my husband's mom and generally go on an adventure. Like, I think we're going kind of hog wild in this post COVID kind of world. Heavy emphasis on the air quotes, but like, we've got the freedom, we might as well take it, is kind of where we're at. So on that trip, I'm planning on taking These Violent Delights and Born a Crime, because with basically 10 hours on a plane and then all of the waiting that we're gonna have to do at the airport and stuff like that, like, I'm gonna have plenty of time to read. And so yeah, I'm just kind of trying to decide between These Violent Delights and The Bullet That Missed, because it turns out they're actually about the same length. So I'm gonna take one of those and then Born a Crime because it is very lightweight, so it's not going to take up too much of my very small baggage allowance. That's where I'm at right now. I'm doing much better than I anticipated, and I'm having a really good time on my trip. This has been another coffee date with me. Thank you so much for joining me. Definitely pop down below if you feel like it and leave me a like and a comment so that other people can come and find our videos and join the little community that we got growing here, because it's we have been growing exponentially quickly. I was hoping to have 250 subscribers by my birthday, which was yesterday, and I ended up with 287, so thank you so much for being here and for vibing with me. It's been honestly a pleasure, and it will continue to be a pleasure because there is no end in sight. So I will see you in the next one. Bye.